Okay, hello everyone. Nice to see you again in our UNIT.City Kharkiv project. Nice to see you again in my name is Vlad. Hello everyone. I'm the CEO of Innovation Park UNIT.City Kharkiv, and as well I'm the CEO of software development company called Academy Smart. Today we have very interesting guest, Andreas Flodström. Andreas has impressive background, and because he is, first of all, he is co-founder of Ukrainian Swedish IT company Beetroot and Beetroot Academy. Beetroot is a Swedish-Ukrainian IT company, IT service company that has more than 450 employees now. And Beetroot Academy is IT academy that is present in 19 cities in Ukraine, and also they already educated 1% of all IT specialists in Ukraine. Also, Andreas is a social entrepreneur and he has got tech education, and he already has 8 years of experience in managing IT Swedish-Ukrainian business. In 2018, Andreas was awarded as Entrepreneur of the Year in Sweden. And today with Andreas we will speak on a very interesting topic, how to build a multicultural tech company in Ukraine without hierarchy and implement decentralized management. Andreas, thank you for accepting our invitation, and hello.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Hope it will be useful and interesting.
Yeah, I hope that we will spend time with pleasure. And Andreas, I have my first question, and I think this is one of the obvious questions that you have been asked several times, many times. How did you come with establish IT company Beetroot, and why did you choose Ukraine as the country for your tech service growth? So how did you start? How did you find your financing first client, and why Ukraine?
So the founder story. Yeah, it started actually back in 2012. So we were two Swedish entrepreneurs, engineers, like we were engineering students actually. We were still students at the time. And we had various experience in entrepreneurship in Sweden, nothing big, like various small projects. And we had, me and Gustav, so we both had like an idea that we had a big interest in Eastern Europe, and we were learning Russian for different reasons. And so I was still in my sort of studies of, it's called Chalmers School of Entrepreneurship, it's like basically technical entrepreneurship education. And Gustav was finishing his studies in Moscow, in Bauman. And we had an idea that we want to move somewhere to Eastern Europe and set up some kind of business, but we didn't know in what field, and we didn't know exactly where we would do it, but we knew that we wanted to do something that could have a positive social impact in society. So based on that, based on that idea, we evaluated various business models, spheres, and so on. Ended up with that IT is probably good for us because we don't have a lot of money to start a business. So basically our funding from the beginning was, say, 5,000 euros and my student scholarship. In Sweden, when you study, you get a scholarship every month. And with this money, we basically decided that, IT is something where we can start. You need to use your brain and so on. And we started to evaluate, so this is my diploma, like master thesis work. So we evaluated Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova. Actually, first city we arrived to was Kharkiv, with a train from Moscow at the time. And then later we came, finally when we moved, we came with the Zhiguli Peterka, like Lada drive from St. Petersburg to Kiev. And we evaluated from sort of both objective perspectives. So we went quite deep into different parameters of the potential of IT market, short-term, long-term. And I have this like 100 pages report about this. And then not least important, also like subjectively, we felt very welcome in Ukraine from the very start. And that's why we started with Kiev as a starting point. We were basically like living on the floor on in the basement close to Gide Vauxhall, like on the train station, for half a year actually, while we were just like experimenting and testing out different work models mainly with partner teams. And then we moved to Odessa, and Odessa was our first like own Beetroot office, and that's already in 2013. So that's the sort of the early part of the story. Yeah, it's been years.
Yeah, great. So originally your first office in Ukraine was Odessa.
Yes, if to not count our basement in Kiev, where we were just two of us on the air mattresses, but our first like real office was in Odessa. Yeah.
Okay, and in addition that you manage IT service business, you've established also IT school, Beetroot Academy. And what was the reason to come up with this idea to establish Beetroot Academy concept? So this is IT school that has emerged as a part of the Beetroot ecosystem, as far as I understood. Yeah. So what was the reason to?
So the idea was connected to the original idea to give various ways of creating impact, but it was actually triggered, you could say, by situation in Ukraine in 2014 with revolution, war, and so on. And we were just a small team at the time in Odessa, and we were like, okay, maybe now is really the time when we should start to try to do something really impactful, where IT industry was actually still growing even during the most challenging time. And so our idea was that if we can help people to get a successful career in IT, and initially we had the focus on mid-sized cities, getting more women into tech, it's still the focus, and also with Eastern Ukraine, and we worked with a lot of internally displaced of внутренне переселенцы. And so the idea was help people with a successful career in IT. We started this in Poltava. We made it small scale, worked through developing our course programs, very practical, like blended learning, so both online and offline initially. Mm-hmm. And then, over time, when we saw that this is working successfully, like 70% of the students actually get employed in IT, we started to scale. So for the last 3 years, so this was 5 years ago then, so the last 3 years we have been scaling actively to, from Ternopil to Mariupol. And in Mariupol, actually, we also have an IT hub, like a co-working center called Beetroot Hub.
Wow,
so that's the background.
So that's why maybe you got an award of Entrepreneur of the Year, and maybe you need to get this award in Ukraine also. Andreas, can you tell me, but as far as I read in the internet, so you have 6 offices in Ukraine. What the reason to have so many offices? Because is it cost efficient, and how do you manage the exchange of the experience between employees between the office? So the first part of the question, is it cost efficient? Because to support 6 offices, I think it's not so profitable. And the second, how do you manage the exchange of knowledge between employees? Do they feel that they are the part of the one company?
It's a very good question, actually, and it's also a question we also discuss internally. I would say, from a sort of efficiency perspective, I think an office starts to be more efficient at around 50 people. So meaning that, I mean, for example, now we have 6 offices, but from the 1st of June, we will even be 7 offices because we are integrating a team in Zhytomyr. But is it efficient or not? I think it depends a lot on the structure of your team and how you work. So first of all, us being in many offices, it allows us to be, first of all, like we can grow quickly in total, but not grow quickly in each location, which meaning that we can keep kind of this small company or family feeling in each office. Because if you grow, two persons per month in office, it's not so sort of new people every month and so on. And in terms of efficiency, I think it depends a lot on. So we have this very decentralized way of making decisions in general in Beetroot. So we have this big vision that unites us, a general direction, and so on. And I think that if we would have been running the company in a more traditional managed ways, it would have been more challenging. I don't say that it's not challenging actually, but basically us being in 7 offices now, it actually means that that we plan to grow quite a lot, because for now we have, of these 7 offices, we have at least 3 of them who are less than 50 people and who are growing. Kharkiv is actually one of them, so we are now 20 people in Kharkiv, but growing very actively.
You're welcome to UNIT.City to join.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll find you a good office there.
Small promotion.
Yeah, but so original. When I was preparing for interview, I read a lot about your culture of the company, and there are a lot of information in the internet about it. And so this is very interesting structure that you have, and it's you promote it. And to be honest, I didn't find any examples of other companies that promote such culture. So can you tell please a little bit about the culture of your company? So I mean that you don't have special structure of the company, like usual structure. Hierarchical structure. How does the management without actual control work in your company? Do you use any maybe special software tools to monitor the performance of the people, of the employee? So how do you manage this process?
It's a very, very big and wide question. I will try maybe to start from the background of it. So what happened from the beginning. So we came to Ukraine. We were young, maybe a bit naive, young Swedish entrepreneurs, and we were starting to work. And we saw, one of the first things we saw was that when sort of remote IT projects on distance, when they fail, that very often is related to miscommunication in some steps. And we saw that very often in the structure when we worked with different companies, that it was in sort of this, someone communicated with the client and there was a lot of different steps, and then it was the team. So the original idea was very simple, that instead of having these steps of communication, let's flip it around. Let's say that the management is a support function, and each team is responsible and working towards the client directly, so to take away the layer. But at this time we didn't have such ideas as self-management and so on. And we started to think a lot about these questions, and at some point, actually at the point when we were about to grow, and we were at the stage when you would probably in a traditional way, you would start to add like different sort of middle management layers and so on. We actually found out that there is this whole like world movement of companies who are trying to run in an untraditional way. So working with more distributed responsibility, more self-management, and so on. This is called like Teal or Birezovane. There are many different ways, actually, names of this. But we realized that then there is actually different ways. It's not so common, but I think it goes a lot in line with where the world is moving today, and also where actually Ukraine is moving. So I mean, Ukraine is in a transition of people being very active in society, taking more responsibility, and so on. And basically, to come back to what are the key ingredients of this borscht, right? These are, I would say, to give people a lot of trust, expect a lot of responsibility on a personal level. And it's also very natural because, again, when we came, we were young, we didn't have much experience, but we had an idea. We had an idea that we want to create some company that makes a positive impact in the world. And we could sort of attract people with this idea and this culture and basically recruit people who are better than us in different areas. And then the next step of which you recruit people who are smarter than yourself in different areas. Of course, the natural is to give these people a lot of responsibility. And it's not about, like, this is not religious or there's one right way or wrong way, but I think it's about what kind of company you want to build. For us, it was very natural to build a company try to build a company where the idea is that you, how can I say, like especially if you're a bigger structure, let's say that you're a big company, like we are now not big, but we are, let's say, mid-sized, 450 people. If you are a top management who should take all the decisions at all different points, you will become a very slow structure at some point. But if you are a company more based on different clusters where everyone share a common vision, have a transparent flow of information and so on, but decisions are made everywhere in the organizations in parallel with a certain process and so on, then I think that you can take much more decisions and the average quality of the decisions can be much better. So this like trust and responsibility, these are like the main ingredients. And another, I think, important factor is for us has been to build a very informal culture. So when you come to a Beetroot office, you take off your shoes, you put on your slippers, so no like dress code. It's everyone are communicating on like direct. It's a very informal culture, which is also sort of that helps people to sort of take off a corporate mask and just be yourself. Let's see, did I answer all your questions? You had a question. Well, yeah, you had a question about sort of monitoring results and so on, right? So this is actually, so to be honest, this is one of the more challenging. So when you think about self-managed, this can, when you think about the traditional company, it's very clear. Like decisions, they move up and then move down, and then you implement, and then you're responsible towards your boss, basically. And in this, it's a bit more complicated, because for this to work, there needs to be a culture of, let's say, peer-to-peer responsibility and accountability, because you're not responsible towards me as the CEO, you're responsible towards the whole organization. And so in terms of what is easy and what is hard with this model, like dividing the role, relatively easy. Building the accountability takes a lot of work. Like you have to work with the mindset, because if most people who join the organization are used to working in an organization where you are answering towards the boss, and here you answer towards all of your colleagues and towards the bigger mission.
But until what size is it possible to grow with this culture? What do you think?
I don't think there is a limit of the size. I actually think in a way it can be even easier to grow such structure, because it's in a way it's like, instead of growing a pyramid that becomes more and more complex, you grow clusters. So, but one of the effects can be that you are not maybe growing in an exact direction. You're not making like 5-year plan, we are going to this and we're going to do this and this and that. Like it's more, each unit have their own shared part of their vision, taking decisions according to it, and it can actually lead to interesting effects. Like for example, some of our offices are not like funded or started based on that this was the plan from the beginning, that we should have an office in this and that city, but more related to someone in the team taking an initiative that I think we should open an office in Ivano-Frankivsk. Let's do it. And then how is that decision made then? So it's not that, of course, it's not that everyone can take any decision at any time and just do whatever you want. So it's not a complete adhocracy in that sense. But the idea is that you have a vision, you have a mission. In our case, our mission is that we want to be the most socially impactful company in Ukraine by 2029. So this is like a long-term idea. And this doesn't mean that we have to be the most, the biggest or the most profitable, but it actually means that we need to be commercially successful as well. And with that mission, you nail that down to what are the different team goals, who the team sets themselves. And then on a specific initiative, anyone can bring up an idea. And then it's sort of an advice process going. So you take in input from the different parts of the organization that would be affected or would have an input in the question, and then you take a decision. So it's that's also an interesting thing in terms of so it's not hierarchical, it's also not consensus that everybody has to agree, but it's an advice process basically, and then you have to actually defend your decisions towards the organization.
Yeah, sounds really good and impressive, because for me it's really hard to understand how to control the structure. And the question is, does your team work, so you have widespread offices around the Ukraine, and can several offices work on the same project from different location for your customer? Does it work?
Yes, it's quite it's not the standard, but it's quite common, I would say. We try to build the offices in the teams for a specific project or client in the same office, but we also have quite many cases where you work on distributed teams, so to say.
you have very responsible employees in your company, to be honest. And managing the Swedish-Ukrainian company for almost last 8 years, have you noticed some cross-cultural difference between Ukrainian specialists and that are integrated in your remote Sweden team? So did you find some differences, and what are they? Can you describe, please?
There are definitely some different, and I should just, for the clarity of Beetroot, we are a Swedish-Ukrainian company, but actually we are of 470 people, we are 455 in Ukraine and 15 in Sweden. So our team in Sweden is relatively small, but a lot of our clients are Swedish, but we also work with clients from 20 different countries. So I get this question quite often, and I usually say, when someone asks me about cultural difference between specifically, like say, Sweden and Ukraine, I usually say that if you take the world, the globe, and you take different cultures, and then you compare similarities and differences, I think that the cultures are actually quite close. So there's not like this major cultural clashes or anything, but there are some very distinctive differences. And I don't know if you've ever worked with Swedes, but actually Swedes are quite complicated people in terms of. So the Swedish culture is not so direct as the Ukrainian culture, and here I really appreciate the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are more, I would say, direct in communication. Swedes are a little bit careful to step on someone's toes. It's a little bit like you say something, but it's something in between in the context. So this can be a challenge. This is something we always talk to our Ukrainian teams, to our Swedish teams, to sort of bridge this. But I'm really promoting the Ukrainian way in this part. Other things that could be different is the process. So Swedes like to plan a lot of things in advance. So it's very long-term planning, and it can be for good and for bad. Sometimes it's good if things work as they should. Sometimes it's bad when everything changed. Like now recently, when all the world turned upside down. I think this is very mentally difficult more difficult actually for Swedes than for Ukrainians, because I think Ukrainians are more used to this constantly changing environments. Now it's a crisis, now it's going up, and so on. For Swedes, this has historically not been the same. Another interesting thing is decision making. So I said that in Beetroot we try to use this sort of advice process but actually a specific thing about the Swedish culture is kind of consensus culture. So you try to get everyone to have a say and sort of compromise until you have a decision. And the pro with that, the good side is that when you take a decision, everyone are very aligned. The negative side is that decisions can take very long time. And this is also interesting when we work with, you can see a difference when we work with clients in different cultures, that this is quite specific. Yeah, I think maybe you have some more questions about the cultural.
Okay, can you please describe, having the Beetroot office here, can you describe the plus and minuses of having office in the Kharkiv region or in Kyiv region? Because you are here in a role of European Union investor, and can you describe these plus and minuses maybe for people?
Yeah, it's so interesting. For now, it's already so. Since I moved to Ukraine in 2012, so it means that I lived already more than half of my grown-up life in Ukraine. So I feel like I'm somewhere in between. But let's take it from the big perspective. So I think Kharkiv was actually on our map sort of from the very beginning. As I said, first time we came to Ukraine with the train, we came to Kharkiv. And we always actually worked with Kharkiv, not with our own office, but with partner teams and so on. From the beginning we started, we looked at Kyiv and we looked at different smaller cities like from Zaporizhzhia, and we concluded at the point when we started that we wanted to start in a city of around 1 million people. So basically an established IT industry, but not overcrowded, maybe not the capital, some more maybe impact on where we are. And we were choosing in 2013 between the two final candidates was Kharkiv and Odessa. And guess why we chose Odessa? Because of the sea.
Yeah.
And I lived in Odessa for 4 years, and I still love Odessa. But actually, from many other perspectives, in Kharkiv I think it's an obvious choice for an IT company to be in Kharkiv and to grow in Kharkiv, because you have strong universities. It's a very like engineering heavy city, nice culture. So we always said, basically every year we said, are we going to Kharkiv this year or not? And I mean, finally we are in Kharkiv.
Finally you are in Kharkiv.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, as you are running two companies, so Beetroot and Beetroot IT Academy, I read a lot that you have a big social life and social entrepreneurship mission. How did you combine all that, and how do you find time for that?
So, I mean, to be honest, I mean, since I moved to Ukraine, of course, everything related to Beetroot and Beetroot ecosystem it's like sort of interconnected with my whole life. And so in terms of the social, I mean, so in my brain, like in my mind, everything that we do with Beetroot and with Beetroot Academy is based on a social mission. So we want to be the most impactful in a positive way, in a social, economic, and environmental. So just as examples, I mean, impact can be sometimes measured, sometimes it's hard to measure. But so on the social side, it can be develop a chance for people to develop in the team, developing mindset, more global mindset, maybe mindset of self-awareness, responsibility in society, and so on. Economical, I mean, IT industry as a whole has a very big positive social economical impact on Ukraine. If you can do that specifically more, let's say in the regions, if we can get more women into tech, it's one of our missions as well. We are around 40% women in Beetroot. And environmental it's sort of, I mean, any business you run will have some unfortunate environmental impact. For us, it's basically three things. One is to try to minimize it. One is to compensate the impact we have. So, for example, we are doing CO2 compensation for all the emissions we are doing, and so on. And third is to work with mindset. So, for we have just recycling. We have recyclers in our office, and people actually start to take their trash from home and recycle it in. So we are also a big trash station. But just to come back to the question. So for me, like this, what does it mean, social entrepreneurship? It actually means that you're running a business that has to be commercially sustainable and even successful. But the end goal is not your commercial success. The commercial success is a tool to achieve the social impact goal. And for me, I think, I mean, now spending already 8 years on this in Ukraine and so on, I think honestly it's what keeps motivating every day to go to work. Like now we don't go to work, we sit at home, but soon we hope we'll come back.
No, you have to come back. What Swedish tradition can you recommend for Ukrainian CEO that you brought to Ukrainian company? Maybe you have some special Swedish tradition in your office, in your cultural life, your company.
Well, I mean, in terms of traditions, we have a lot of sort of fun traditions, which is nice. But we have for example, fika culture, which is something in a Swedish company, at least 2 times per day, everybody will sit together and drink coffee and eat bulishki.
You just named it very funny, but we have also this tradition.
And various such things. But I think in terms of sort of company, so in general, if you look at and this is interesting actually. So again, looking at different cultures in business. So I would say that still Ukrainian traditionally it's kind of a more sort of corporate structure in things. Scandinavian companies and Swedish companies are in general a bit more flat, but they're not without hierarchy. It's more it's a more flat, more informal way, and you have a little bit lower layers of hierarchy. And what we do in Beetroot is actually we try to take it one step further to sort of get way of this and try some experimental other ways of working. And one interesting thing I've noticed in Ukraine, because a lot of people ask me, isn't this very hard to do in Ukraine? Because, the mindset is different and people are not used to working that way and so on. And I would say on the one hand, yes, but on the other hand, it might be easier. because one of the things I noticed that even in a Swedish company where you have this sort of flat structure and you come with something new, it might be not a big hunger for change. And in the Ukrainian context, I think that one of the things that makes me motivated to be in Ukraine and continue to work with developing Ukraine is that I see a lot of hunger for positive change in society, social movement of different kinds, and so on. So what I see is that because a lot of people are very fed up with working in a traditional way, or where you have always been like punished for something you did wrong, or it's like, and if you have that mindset, and if you are that part of population who wants something different, you can be very open to trying something completely different. So in that sense, maybe it's in some sense even easier to try this sort of self-management concept in Ukraine. But I think that and again, but it depends on who you are and what you want, I guess. But I think again, key factors is the transparency, trust, equality, like the feeling of that everybody has their role, where you are the main responsible and you are actually owning this role. And for all of this to work, I think it's very important to have something we call like adult relationship, like vzrosli. Because in a traditional environment, usually what happens is that the roles, like the role play we have, it takes this thing, like if you're a manager, you're a bit like a parent. And if you're a child, you're like waiting for the parent to tell you what to do. And if something works, you're a little bit like helpless, and the parent will solve everything. So it's actually, as a manager, if you manage to build such culture of that people taking their own responsibility, your life will actually be much easier, because you're not the only one who will have to be sleepless at night because you are responsible for everything, because you have a lot of different people who are responsible. So, but in order to build that, and that's something we also work with, and I'm not saying that this is always easy and that everything works and so on. So it's not like a fairy tale сказка, but it has a lot of benefits. But in order for it to work, you need to work a lot with the feedback culture. So you cannot just let go. So the old structure has this parent-child structure, manager, сотрудник, and in this way you cannot just let go. It's not that you don't have any kind of control. It's more an organic control, where the organization on like a peer-to-peer level. So it's not just me giving feedback as CEO to someone, you're doing a bad job or something, but it's actually everyone in the organization who supposedly has this power to give input and feedback to each other.
And very interesting. So you're describing the culture, and it's really interesting, and it's really, I see that it's really the culture of your company. It's not just written rules. It's really culture. So I will ask last question, because I can speak with you, I think, hours, and you are really open-minded person. It's really convenient to talk with you. So I will ask last question from my side, and then we will go to the question from the audience. So my last question is, your structure allows you to expand your office not only in Ukraine. So do you plan to expand your office, I mean development offices, of course not sales, it's clear. Do you plan to expand your offices, for example, in Poland or in Romania, for example, or in Belarus in near future?
Not as a clear plan. So we had, so of course, like from the very beginning, we considered different locations, and we compared different locations in 2012, second times in 2014, when everything was very shaky, as we all know. And every time we do this comparison, we conclude that, but actually the best, our best option is to continue in Ukraine and to develop in Ukraine. The reason, I think there could definitely be reasons for us to be in other locations. One reason could be to be within the European Union. Some clients are hesitant to working with Ukraine simply because of this fact,
GDPR,
unfortunately, in this GDPR and so on, and general perception of geopolitical instability and so on. So that can be, but it could also be actually, I mean, another option could also be at some point in the future, and this is not in our plan for the nearest year or anything, but we have historically looked a little bit at, for example, Vietnam as an interesting location in Asia, and also in Africa. Actually, we have some partners in Ethiopia we've been working with as well. But in general, we are very like focused now on Ukraine, Sweden, and all of our countries where we work with clients. But then for the academy, the more international expansion is actually going on actively right now. So the academy, we started in Ukraine, we grew up to 19 locations, educated 3,000 people. Now we have our first group of graduates finishing in Sweden soon. And this is actually very cool because this is already like the academy became like a product by itself. Like it's a learning management platform. It's a sort of structured learning methodology, which we actually implement now in Sweden. We even send Ukrainian teachers to Sweden and teaching Swedes how to code, which is pretty cool, I think. And also we are working with the partner team now in Kosovo for launching. And this is interesting.
Wow.
Coincidence. So we have the ambition of growing the academy globally. Beetroot maybe. Again, we are dynamic and opportunistic, so different things can change, but our main focus is really to grow in Ukraine for the nearest years.
It's a pleasure to hear, and even that our experts now needed in Sweden to help to set up the process of education of IT guys. Thank you very much for my questions, and now we'll jump to the questions that have our audience. So everybody who wants to ask questions, Andreas, you can type them. It's better to type in YouTube and I will read them. And Andreas, we have already first questions I see, and I will start with the first one. Irina asked you a question. With such self-management approach, how do you keep a track of the working process? So the tasks are being fulfilled, delivery time is not exceeding the deadline. Do you have some KPI? I think that's Irina's question.
Good question, and it's a little bit so again, the Beetroot is like an ecosystem. So we have different parts of the team, and actually different teams works a bit in different ways. So when it comes to development teams, they are usually integrated into the client management. So they are, depending on how the client works, like that can look in different ways. So basically, I mean, agile and self-management are two very close things. In Beetroot, like in the sort of in our own delivery team, so we have both dedicated teams and more like project delivery teams, as well as Beetroot management. We are working with OKR systems. So simply, we have the big vision going most impactful 10 years. Then we have like a 3-year, which is a bit more specific, but still, and then the 1-year plan, which is developed together with the teams. And then each team divide this 1-year plan. So again, so actually we are doing goal settings like you would in another company as well, but it's down, what do you call it, like it's from the other way. So you're like working out your own goals. It's not set by your manager in that sense. But so OKRs divided 4 sprints per year. Everybody coming up with their part of the plan that we have worked out together, and then on an individual level. So we have Trello board for that, and in the management team. So basically, we use such tools. Hope I answered the question, Irina.
And Volodymyr asked you a question. Do you manage a recruitment process by yourself? I mean, he asked.
Me personally?
Yeah, I mean, he asked because it's. I understand why he asks this question, because it's maybe hard to transfer the vision of this culture to all your employees, and especially to recruitment team. Maybe that they will select the people that will understand and apply your culture in the future.
And actually, when you say that, now I was thinking that sometimes I think that part of our team or recruitment or HR team would be better than me in explaining the culture, because they do it every day to candidates and so on. But I did so in the beginning. I mean, we grow from 2 persons gradually. We were small for some years, so in the first years I had a couple of thousand interviews, and then maybe we had first HR person in the team, and we were doing it together, and so on. So I think that because of us doing this gradually and organically, this is sort of translating from person to person. So I am involved in some recruitment processes for management team people, for the development teams usually not. And I mean, we have 14 people in the HR team doing interviews every day, so
it's enough now.
It's enough, yeah. But we have a lot of we have what I am very involved in is that we have a lot of conversations about culture, about what is the profile, who are the people we are looking for, how do we translate. So we work a lot with this aspect, but for recruitment, of course, we have a very good HR team.
And actually, I want to ask one more question from my side. What is your main function now as the CEO of the company? What do you see the main function of your own?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm asking myself this all the time, actually.
For what I get a salary from the company.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I mean, so one thing maybe what I spend a lot of time on is I'm participating and trying to be involved on a sort of strategic and overall level in many different topics. So we have a team who works with the strategy. So there I'm very involved. I sometimes I have connections with clients, but I'm not doing like active sales, but sometimes through network, sometimes if something comes up and so on. So honestly, I'm a little bit all over the place, maybe a little bit too much sometimes. And I'm also for now I'm combining the CEO of Beetroot and Beetroot Academy, which is luckily why this works still is that we have this self-management and a lot of people taking a lot of responsibility. But I will actually hand over the Beetroot Academy Ukraine CEO role next week, and there will be, it's not public yet, so I cannot share any names, but actually the CEO of Beetroot Academy will be in Kharkiv from next week.
Good choice.
So, yeah.
Academy Smart actually asked you a question. Andreas, you didn't name the specific tool for management control. Could you please mention several tools that might be useful for colleagues in IT management?
So honestly, I mean, I would not tell you anything new in this. GitLab, Trello, the normal tasks, task force. Yeah. Personally, I use Trello, but I'm not a developer, so that's
why you use it. Okay. And
if you would ask my technical team, you would get
more detailed answer.
More detailed, yeah.
And we have also a question from Irina, and she asked, when you were starting, why did you decide to do everything yourself and not to cooperate with some outsourcing company?
It's actually so to clarify, we actually did. So for the first half a year in Ukraine, was just me and Gustav. A website in WordPress we built ourselves with some Beetroot, and us finding clients and then putting together cooperations with different outsourcing or service companies, sometimes freelancers, and actually we still do. So we did that, and then we started to build our own dedicated team. But actually, as for now, we have around 30 different partner teams who we work with, some of them very closely. There are companies of like say 50 people who we provide maybe up to 1/3 of all the projects from. So basically we have dedicated team, we have few technologies where we have project delivery, and in any other technology, like any other request we get, we work with partner teams. So if there are listeners from other IT companies, we are always open for cooperation, also in the academy. So the academy, so we call it Beetroot Academy, but it's not that we educate for Beetroot. We actually educate for the whole IT industry, because the academy is so big in relation to our needs inside of Beetroot. So of course, take good graduates ourselves, but in general, our graduates works in more than 200 different IT companies. So if you have such interests, come to us. It's actually not only so from the beginning, it was only focused on your first job in IT, so front-end UI UX and a couple of like other fields. And now we actually have also courses for more advanced, like learning a new framework, also non-technical skills such as technical entrepreneurship, HR, project management, and so on. So we are, again, like we see ourselves as an organism, as an ecosystem, always open for cooperation, always open to discuss, very transparent.
It's very interesting.
No big secret.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But Irina asked you another question: Are you mainly services company or have some product? If not, plan to have some. So maybe I rephrase this question: do you plan to have your product? But I already maybe heard answer from. So you have as a product, you have your learning management system. Yeah. Do you plan to extend it and to sell it maybe? Because now, because of this pandemic virus, yeah, we have a very big demand for e-learning and for e-learning system in general.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we have, yes. So the answer is, so Beetroot. So I have this idea that the company should be very focused on what you do. So Beetroot, we are a software service company, and we will be a software service, but from Beetroot, it can still be a planting ground. It's an ecosystem, it's an organism, so they can grow up seeds, right? And then, but if that seeds grow up, then we would not incorporate that like inside of Beetroot, because I think the nature of the company, to be good in one field, you need to be in that field. And then you would take it out and organize it as a separate organization, which is actually what happened with the academy. So the academy was first part of Beetroot, then it grew out, and then we grow it to our own product. So I see huge potential in that. So for now, it's been used until 2 months ago. We were using it only for like blended online and offline. So we had parts of the education online and parts offline. And what happened now for the last 2 months is that we dramatically had to put everything online, and it actually works better than we expected. So students are actually getting the same skill set in the courses. The only thing that is lacking in this fully online concept is the community building. So if you think that's still an important thing to interact with companies, with your core students and so on, you can do that online as well, but it's a little bit different still. But we see that if you look at the field of online, so what we are now, we are like online blended learning. You have sort of video material, more passive and so on, and then active learning in Zoom and so on, like an active format. So if you look at that field, there are there are of course a lot of companies in the world, but there is no like really like dominant in this field, and there will actually not be. I think there will be many different actors who provide online education. So we see a big future for that. We are working on our product to make it more and more attractive for that. And as I said, like we already are, you can call it piloting it or testing it in new locations. So yes, that's the Beetroot Academy. Is, you can say, a seed grown out of Beetroot with the potential international product company.
Yeah, I understand that your time is limited, and so I will ask the last question from the audience. And Natalia asked, why did you decide to hire a CEO for Beetroot Academy, and so you will leave this position so you will not follow with the CEO position of Beetroot Academy?
The truth is there are two different main reasons. So one is, of course, that the day has 24 hours, and it's hard to be everywhere. But the other reason is also I think that there are there can be another person who can be better in some parts of what I have been doing as a CEO. And this doesn't mean that I leave Beetroot Academy as a person working there. I will actually, my formal role will, I guess, be as founder, whatever. It doesn't actually matter what the role name will be. But the idea is that actually I will spend approximately the same time as I spend with the Academy now, but I would spend it on working on very like strategic topic, global topics. How do we develop Beetroot Academy International and so on? And just, keep working on culture, building partnerships, and so on. It sounds very fluffy, but it's slightly less fluffy than it sounds. So basically, because I believe that the Beetroot Academy will be better off with a new person.
With a new Vlad in the company.
It's exciting. It's a big step. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, it's
ask me in 1 year.
like I don't know. It's like your child, and you see that she has a new mother. It's very hard.
But it's also in a way, like if you look at the company as an organism, that if you are, as long as a company is dependent on the founder or the founders, then it's still not a mature organization. So it can also be a way to helping the organization to mature and not be dependent. An organization shouldn't be dependent on any single person, no matter the founder or
Totally agree with you. Totally agree. Andreas, thank you very much for your time. For me, it was really productive and really interesting talk because you're so open-minded person, and now I understand how you built such big company with such culture. From my perspective, I wish your company, Beetroot and Beetroot Academy, to grow and to be leader of the market. And thank you very much that you found time and shared your knowledge with our audience. Guys, thank you very much that you found time and we are watching our interview. Please sign for our channel and stay in touch. Andreas, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Hope it was interesting. And feel free to connect with me.
Yeah, please connect Andreas, and maybe you'll find some partnership in the future.
Always open.
Definitely connect. Thank you very much.
See you in
Thank you.
Kharkiv soon,
Yes.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. Bye. Bye.
Bye.